When Socrates stood before the court of Athens, accused of corrupting the youth and questioning the gods, he could have chosen the easy way out. He could have apologized, renounced his teachings, and saved his life. But instead, he uttered the words that echo across centuries. The unexamined life is not worth living. His words were not mere rhetoric. They were the very essence of his philosophy and his way of being. They remind us that to live without reflection, to move through days like shadows passing across the earth without asking why, is to miss the very purpose of human existence. Every person is born with the capacity to think, to reflect, to understand, and to grow. Yet many people allow themselves to live passively, simply reacting to circumstances instead of directing their lives consciously. Think of a farmer in ancient Athens who plants his crops year after year, following tradition without ever asking if his methods can be improved, or if the life he lives is the one he truly desires. He may survive, but he does not thrive. Contrast him with Socrates, who questioned every assumption, who asked not just how to live, but why. It is this willingness to examine, to ask, to dig beneath the surface, that separates a meaningful life from an existence that is merely endured. Self-reflection is the path to growth. Without it, we repeat mistakes, fall into cycles, and wonder why we feel unfulfilled. With it, we transform. The ancients knew this well. The oracle of Delphi bore the inscription, "Know the self." This was not a casual suggestion, it was the cornerstone of wisdom. To know oneself is to confront one's fears, desires, strengths, and weaknesses. It means asking, am I living according to my values, or am I following the crowd? Am I acting from courage or from fear? Am I building a life of substance, or am I drifting on the tides of habit? Socrates gave his life for the pursuit of truth, but he was not alone in this tradition. Pythagoras, centuries earlier, urged his students to reflect every evening, asking themselves, what did I do well today? What did I fail in? What duties did I neglect? Such practices may seem small, but they are the seeds of greatness. Reflection is like a mirror held up to the soul. Without it, we walk around blind to our flaws and blind to our potential. With it, we see not only who we are, but who we might become. Consider also the example of Plato, Socrates' student. Plato examined the life of the state itself, asking what justice means, how rulers should govern, and what the ideal society might look like. His Republic is not just a political text, but a reflection on the human condition. He did not accept Athens as it was, he examined it, tested it against reason, and envisioned something better. From this we learn that self-examination is not only personal but also collective. A society that refuses to examine itself falls into decay, just as an individual does. The truth is, the unexamined life is easier. It demands no courage, no discomfort, no deep questioning. It allows one to live on autopilot, obeying tradition, conforming to expectation, and avoiding the hard work of thinking. But what kind of life is that? It is like a traveler who never looks up from the road to see where he is going. He may cover great distances, but he never knows his destination. Examination, by contrast, requires courage. It asks us to face truths we would rather avoid. It asks us to question our beliefs, even those handed down by family, culture, or authority. In doing so, it gives us freedom, the freedom to live authentically, to choose our path, and to grow into our highest potential. In the ancient world, this courage to examine life often came with sacrifice. Socrates lost his life, but he gained immortality of thought. Diogenes, who lived in a barrel, examined the false values of society by mocking wealth, power, and pretense, showing that freedom comes from stripping away illusions. Even Marcus Aurelius, centuries later, while bearing the weight of empire, examined his own mind through daily meditations. He did not assume that power made him wise. Instead, he reflected constantly on virtue, humility, and the fleeting nature of life. Their lives show us that reflection is not a retreat from life, but the very force that shapes it. Self-examination is not about endless doubt or paralysis, it is about clarity. It allows us to live with intention. Without it, we may achieve success by the world's standards and still feel empty, because we never asked whether the ladder we climbed was leaning against the right wall. With examination, we measure success not only by wealth or status, but by whether we have lived in alignment with truth, with virtue, with purpose. This is why Socrates' words still cut to the heart of human experience. They remind us that reflection is not optional, if we want a life of depth. So let us ask ourselves, as the ancients did, who am I becoming? What do I value? What is the purpose of my work, my relationships, my choices? Am I merely existing, or am I living? The act of asking these questions already separates us from the unexamined life. For it is in the asking, in the searching, in the willingness to confront ourselves, that we grow into something greater. And as we embrace this practice of self-reflection, we prepare to face not just the truth within ourselves, but the greater truths that lead us toward courage, purpose, and ultimately, a life that leaves a legacy beyond our own time. Throughout history, truth has always demanded courage. Comfort is easy, it lulls us into routine, into conformity, into the safety of the familiar. But comfort rarely shapes greatness, while the pursuit of truth, though often difficult and unsettling, leads to transformation. Socrates knew this well when he chose to face death rather than abandon his search for truth. In his trial, the citizens of Athens offered him an option to stop questioning, to stop exposing uncomfortable realities, and to live quietly. Yet Socrates refused. He understood that a comfortable life without truth was not worth living, for it meant surrendering the very essence of human dignity, the ability to think freely, to seek wisdom, and to live authentically. Courage to seek truth has never been common. Even in ancient times, most people clung to traditions without questioning them. It takes boldness to ask, is this just? Is this true? Is this right? Diogenes the Cynic embodied this boldness when he rejected the wealth, customs, and pretenses of Athens. He lived with nothing, owning only a lantern, which he famously carried through the streets, claiming he was searching for an honest man. The Athenians laughed, but behind his strange behavior was a profound truth. Honesty, authenticity, and virtue are far more valuable than comfort, luxury, or reputation. His life, though uncomfortable, was a living challenge to a society that often preferred illusion over reality. Seeking truth means choosing the harder road. It may cost us relationships, status, or even safety, but it also liberates us. Consider Galileo, centuries after the ancients, who dared to challenge the belief that the sun revolved around the earth. His truth brought him into conflict with powerful authorities, who preferred the comfort of established doctrine. Yet Galileo's courage paved the way for a new understanding of the universe. Like Socrates, like Diogenes, like every truth seeker before him, he revealed that comfort keeps us stagnant, but truth propels humanity forward. The pursuit of truth is not only about grand philosophical debates or scientific discoveries, it is also deeply personal. It means looking at ourselves with honesty, stripping away the masks we wear to please others. It means asking whether our beliefs are truly our own or inherited from others without examination. It means questioning whether our daily choices reflect our values or merely the expectations imposed upon us. This requires courage because truth is not always flattering. It may reveal laziness where we saw effort, fear where we imagined bravery, or selfishness where we claimed virtue. Yet only when we face these truths can we grow. Avoiding them keeps us comfortable, but it also keeps us small. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, understood this. Surrounded by power, wealth, and constant flattery, he could have lived in illusion. He practiced daily reflection through his writings, reminding himself of life's brevity, of the vanity of power, and of the need to act with justice and humility. It was not comfortable to remind himself that he, the ruler of the most powerful empire in the world, was still mortal, still flawed, still in need of constant self-discipline. Yet his courage to embrace such truths made him one of the most respected leaders in history, remembered not just as an emperor but as a philosopher who lived with integrity. Truth is often inconvenient. It disrupts illusions. It demands change. That is why many resist it, preferring comfort. In ancient Athens, when Socrates asked people to define justice, love, or virtue, many grew frustrated. They realized that their definitions were shallow, their understanding incomplete. It is easier to remain in ignorance than to wrestle with the complexities of truth. But those who dare to wrestle with it are the ones who grow wise. It is no accident that Socrates described himself as a gadfly, sent to sting the city into wakefulness. The sting is uncomfortable, but without it, the city would sleep forever. In our own lives, truth challenges us in similar ways. It might mean admitting that we are in the wrong career, that a relationship is not healthy, or that our habits are leading us away from our highest potential. These realizations hurt. They disturb the comfort of routine. But they are also the first steps toward freedom. To live courageously is to prefer the discomfort of truth over the illusion of ease. For illusions may soothe us for a time, but they eventually crumble, leaving us unprepared to face reality. Truth, though harsh, at times strengthens us, prepares us, and equips us to live fully. We must ask ourselves, do we want the temporary peace of ignorance, or the lasting strength of wisdom? History shows us what happens when truth is suppressed. Nations fall into corruption, leaders into tyranny, and individuals into despair. But when truth is pursued, even at great cost, the result is progress, integrity, and inner freedom. The courage to seek truth, then, is not only an act of personal growth, but also an act of service to humanity. Each individual who chooses truth over comfort adds light to the world, breaking apart the shadows of illusion. The ancients remind us that comfort is fleeting, but truth endures. Socrates could have chosen a comfortable life of silence, but instead, he chose truth, leaving behind a legacy that still guides us. Diogenes could have sought wealth, but instead, he exposed its emptiness, teaching us that freedom lies in simplicity. Marcus Aurelius could have indulged in power, but instead he examined himself daily, teaching us that truth lies in virtue, not title. Their examples urge us to be brave, to seek truth in our own lives, and to resist the easy temptation of comfort. And when we choose truth over comfort, we do more than live honestly. We begin to live with direction, with purpose, and with the strength to endure whatever life places before us. Truth clears the fog from our path, and shows us not only where we stand but where we must go. And it is in this clarity that we begin to see the difference between living by routine and living with purpose, a difference that invites us to step into the next great challenge of the examined life. Life offers us two paths. One is the path of mere existence, where each day is a repetition of the last, and the other is the path of purpose, where each moment becomes part of a larger journey. The unexamined life is trapped in the first path, moving in circles bound by routine, never asking why. The examined life, however, seeks the second path, where choices are intentional, where actions are connected to meaning, and where the soul is engaged in something greater than survival. Consider the lives of many in ancient times who lived without reflection. Farmers tilled the soil because their fathers did, craftsmen hammered their tools because their masters instructed them, and citizens obeyed laws without ever asking if those laws were just. They lived as if on a wheel, endlessly turning but never moving forward. Their existence was sustained, but their inner lives were asleep. In contrast, those who embraced purpose, like the philosophers, the poets, the leaders who dared to question, rose above mere existence and touched eternity. Homer's epics were not written by someone content with routine. They were born of a vision to preserve the values and struggles of humanity. Similarly, Socrates' questions were not idle distractions, but the sparks that ignited souls to seek truth and virtue. Routine has its place in life. It provides structure and discipline. But when routine becomes the master instead of the servant, life shrinks into habit without meaning. Many people today wake, work, eat, sleep, and repeat, without ever pausing to ask what it all adds up to. They may achieve comfort, they may accumulate possessions, but they do not feel alive because the spirit longs for purpose. Purpose lifts us above the ordinary. It gives context to our struggles and meaning to our sacrifices. It turns hardship into a lesson and success into service. Marcus Aurelius exemplifies this difference. As emperor of Rome, he could have drowned in the routine of governance, the endless cycle of decrees, battles, and ceremonies, but he chose to anchor his life in purpose. His meditations reveal a man constantly asking himself, "What is my duty? Am I serving justice? Am I acting with virtue?" He saw his role not as a throne of power, but as a mission to act justly for the good of the empire. This purpose kept him from being enslaved by the routine of rulership. His reign was not defined by comfort but by responsibility, by striving to align daily actions with a higher calling. Purpose requires examination. Without self-reflection, we cannot know what we are truly called to do. The unexamined life may follow routines given by society: study to get a job, work to earn money, consume to feel pleasure. But this cycle is shallow. The examined life asks, what impact do I want to leave? What values do I stand for? How will my work, my relationships, my choices contribute to something greater than myself? These questions transform routine into ritual, turning daily actions into steps on a purposeful journey. Take, for example, Alexander the Great. His life was not ordinary, nor was it lived in routine. From a young age, he envisioned himself as a world conqueror, inspired by Achilles and guided by Aristotle. He did not march armies simply for the sake of power. He pursued a purpose: to spread Greek culture and to carve his name into history. Whether or not one agrees with his methods, his example shows that a life fueled by purpose expands beyond the narrowness of repetition. He died young, yet his name is remembered millennia later. A short life with purpose surpasses a long life lived in monotony. Purpose, however, does not always require conquest or empire. Even in small acts, a life of purpose shines. A craftsman who sees his work as service to others, a mother who raises her children with love and values, a teacher who views education as the planting of seeds for future generations, each transforms routine into meaning. What matters is not the grandeur of the action, but the intention behind it. The ancients understood this. Aristotle spoke of telos, the end or purpose of a thing. Just as a seed's purpose is to grow into a tree, so too must a person discover and live according to their true purpose. Without it, we are like seeds that never sprout, alive but unrealized. Routine without purpose is draining. It leaves us restless, no matter how stable or comfortable life appears. Purpose energizes us, even in hardship. A soldier in ancient Sparta did not endure grueling training for the sake of routine. He endured it because his life had a clear purpose: to defend his city with honor. Purpose gave strength to the weak, resilience to the weary, and hope to those in despair. It still does today. When we know why we do what we do, even the smallest act becomes powerful. Yet finding purpose is not easy. It requires courage, honesty, and examination. We must strip away illusions, question inherited beliefs, and listen to the call within us. This call may lead us away from comfort, away from routine, and into challenges that test us. But those challenges shape us into who we are meant to be. Purpose may not always bring ease, but it always brings fulfillment. It ensures that at the end of life, we can say not only that we existed, but that we lived. The great difference between existing and living is direction. Existing is floating on the currents of habit. Living is steering with intention. Existing is repeating the past. Living is creating the future. Existing may fill time, but living fills the soul. This is why the unexamined life is not worth living, for without examination, we cannot find purpose. Without purpose, we are condemned to cycles without meaning. With purpose, however, every day, every struggle, every victory becomes part of a larger story. A story that gives shape not only to our lives, but also to the world we leave behind. And when we embrace this purposeful way of living, we naturally align ourselves with something even greater: the chance to inspire others, to leave behind a legacy, and to show that a life examined, reflected upon, and guided by meaning can outlive the body, echoing in the hearts and minds of those who come after us. When Socrates chose death over silence, he proved that the examined life leaves behind a legacy greater than the individual. His body perished, but his words, his questions, and his example lived on. That is the power of an examined life. It echoes beyond a single lifetime, shaping generations, guiding minds, and igniting the courage of those yet to be born. We all live, we all die, but the difference lies in what remains when we are gone. A life without reflection fades quickly into history, forgotten like a shadow at dusk. A life of examination, however, carves its name into the memory of humanity, because it teaches not only how to live, but why to live. In ancient Greece, Socrates left no written words, no monuments, no treasures, yet his student Plato recorded his dialogues, and through them the world received a philosophy that continues to challenge, provoke, and inspire. Why? Because Socrates chose truth over comfort, purpose over routine, and meaning over survival. His legacy was not wealth or power, but wisdom, the seed of thought that would grow into entire schools of philosophy, influencing Stoics, Christians, Enlightenment thinkers, and even modern seekers of truth. His example shows that the examined life creates ripples far beyond what one can see. Legacy is not always about fame. It is about the impact we leave behind in the hearts, minds, and lives of others. Diogenes the Cynic did not leave behind riches or kingdoms. He left behind questions that mocked the false values of his society, teaching future generations that freedom lies in simplicity and honesty. Marcus Aurelius did not seek to write a book for the world, yet his private reflections, meant only for himself, became a guide for millions who still read his meditations today. He examined his life so deeply that his legacy became a manual for others who seek virtue in a turbulent world. What endures is not what we own, but the truths we embody. When a person examines their life, they discover values that outlive circumstance, pass on courage, wisdom, and strength, even if silently, through the way they live. In the ancient world, legacies were often measured by monuments and victories, yet even the greatest empires crumbled. The statues of conquerors eroded, the walls of cities fell, but the wisdom of philosophers, the poetry of writers, and the examples of reflective lives endured. The Parthenon may lie in ruins, but Socrates' words still live. This shows us that the true legacy of the examined life is not stone or power, but meaning carried forward by human souls. We might wonder, what legacy will we leave? Will it be routine, forgotten as soon as the days pass, or will it be a life examined and lived with intention, remembered because it touched others? Legacy is not reserved for kings and philosophers. It belongs to anyone who chooses to live consciously. A parent who reflects deeply and raises their children with wisdom leaves a legacy that shapes future generations. A teacher who examines their role and teaches not just knowledge, but character leaves a mark that outlasts books. Even a friend who lives authentically and inspires others to be true to themselves leaves behind a legacy of courage. The ancients often spoke of immortality not in terms of endless physical life, but in terms of remembrance. To be remembered was to live on. Homer's heroes sought Cleos, glory that would outlast their bodies. But the greatest form of remembrance comes not from fame but from significance. Socrates is remembered not because he conquered lands, but because he examined the soul. His legacy proves that even an ordinary citizen, with no wealth or political power, can influence the world for millennia, simply by living with courage, truth, and purpose. Living an examined life gives us the clarity to decide what kind of legacy we wish to leave. Without reflection, we may pass down only habits, illusions, and unresolved struggles. But with reflection, we pass down wisdom, truth, and strength. We may not control how long we live, but we can control what meaning we give to the years we are given. Each choice we make, each truth we seek, becomes part of the inheritance we give to others. Even the smallest act, when guided by examination, carries weight. The courage to be honest in a dishonest world, the discipline to live with integrity when others choose shortcuts, the purpose to serve rather than consume. These are the legacies that endure. Think of Epictetus, born a slave in Rome. Years of routine existence, he should have been forgotten, just another nameless figure in history. Yet he examined his life, embraced philosophy, and taught that freedom is not in circumstances but in the mind's control over itself. His words reached beyond his own time, shaping the Stoic philosophy that would guide emperors and common people alike. His legacy reminds us that the examined life is not limited by status or condition. It belongs to anyone with the courage to reflect and to live truthfully. Legacy is not built at the end of life, but in the small choices made every day. The examined life ensures that when we are gone, people will not only remember that we lived, but remember how we lived. Our reflection today becomes the wisdom of tomorrow. Our courage today becomes the strength of those who follow. Our purpose today becomes the inspiration of future generations. This is why the examined life is not worth living only for ourselves. It is worth living because it shapes the world we leave behind. And when we understand this, we realize that examining our lives is not a solitary act, but part of a chain that links us to the past and extends into the future. Socrates examined his life and inspired Plato. Plato reflected and inspired Aristotle. Aristotle taught Alexander, whose vision spread ideas across continents. Each examined life gave rise to another, forming an unbroken legacy of thought, courage, and purpose. When we examine our own lives, we step into this chain, adding our own voice to the chorus of humanity's search for meaning. The legacy of the examined life is not measured by how long we live or how much we acquire, but by how deeply we reflect, how truthfully we act, and how meaningfully we inspire. It is the culmination of self-reflection, courage, and purpose, woven together into a story that endures. And this is why, when all the pieces come together, the unexamined life is not worth living, because it robs us of the chance to leave behind a legacy that gives life not only to ourselves, but to generations yet to come.